So that's kind of the China side, and I'd love to sort of build on that a little bit. I think I want to get you to talk about how you see the Chinese financial reality today. Before we go there, I want to talk a little bit about this Chinese digital yuan that's about to be deployed, right?
Let's begin with what is a digital currency. People have fanciful notions of what it is or what it isn't, and it's conflated with a lot of different things. So a central bank digital currency, which is what we're going to talk about here, is not a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, right? Nor is it a so-called stable coin like Tether. It's not Venmo. It's a legal obligation of a central bank. It is legal tender, just in digital form. So if you were to take a dollar, physical dollar bill, and reduce it to its digital equivalent, that's what that is. It's an IOU of the central bank. Something like 90% of the world's GDP, their central bankers are looking into a digital form of their own physical money. And the one that's furthest along is, drum roll, China. And they've been at this for 8 years. The final point I'll make on this is that this is an inevitability, as far as I'm concerned. Just like cassette tapes became CDs that became Spotify, there's going to come a point in time where we're going to look back on coins and bills as super anachronistic, right? Remember yesteryear, and we were going to see them in museum pieces when we actually had pieces of paper. So it's inevitable. Now, back to China. During the Olympics, they're going to launch their digital currency. This is a surveillance tool, and it's disguised as a payment mechanism. It's going to allow the People's Bank of China, their central bank, to peer into everyone's purchasing history. And so you might say to yourself, hey, dude, whatever, I'm just buying Chardonnay and sushi. But what if you're not, right? What if you're an ethnic or religious minority in China? What if you purchase a Bible in China? There are hundreds of millions of Christians living in China in house churches. Maybe they give money to their pastor. There are a lot of ways that the Chinese government could use this as an instrument of surveillance, tying it to their social credit score, and ultimately keeping an authoritarian regime alive, in effect, forever. And that's very frightening.
And just very briefly, because there may be a few people out there who are not familiar with China's social credit system that's active right now, if you could just explain that.
Yeah, this isn't a science fiction episode, a Black Mirror episode. This is reality where right now you have a credit score similar to what you'd have in the United States, right? If you want to get a mortgage, you look at your credit score. But imagine everything in your life, whether or not you jaywalk, whether or not you pay your taxes on time, everything you do is processed and you're given a rating. And that rating determines whether or not you can travel or not. So tens of millions of people in China over the last several years have been denied travel to visit their relatives because their social credit score wasn't high. Now, imagine if you are a dissident. For all practical intents and purposes, you don't exist. So that is the social credit score. Now, tack on, the money element, and you can see how worrisome it could be for people.
And you don't exist, do you mean by that you have to try to pretend you don't exist because you don't want that system to be picking up your activities? Or what did you mean by that exactly?
Well, you can be canceled. Let's assume you want to get married. Do you think someone is going to want to marry me if I have a low credit score? That means I can't really effectively get a good job. I'm not eligible to be a Chinese Communist Party member. Perhaps I can't buy a house. Perhaps I can't travel. And so for all practical intents and purposes, I'm canceled unless I toe the line. Now, all of this is very worrisome, but you might say to yourself, hey, what happens in China stays in China. Their value system is different than ours. Why should we care, right? And I can understand that perspective, but my concern is that they're very good at exporting, especially their technology. If we're trying to ban TikTok and Huawei, imagine a technology stack that leverages the infrastructure that they've built for financial repression. Imagine the digital Chinese currency being exported to authoritarian regimes around the world. Think Venezuela in this hemisphere, or Cuba, or North Korea, or Iran. Do you not think that the Nicolás Maduro regime in Venezuela would relish the opportunity to have a digital currency where their government, the Chavista government, can peer into what the opposition is doing? Of course they would. To make matters even worse, sort of the cherry on top of the sundae, right now 80+% of foreign exchange transactions are denominated in US dollars. So Venezuela's oil is sold in dollars. Zambia's copper is sold in dollars. Saudi Arabian oil is sold in dollars. Basically every commodity is sold in US dollars, which is one of the main reasons, in fact, why the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. Now, what if there was a means by which the Chinese technology for digital currencies, which could then be replicated in Venezuela, what if this technology were seamless, such that Venezuela could sell and settle its oil and denominate it in digital renminbi? So what happens, you have to sort of think long term, it's not going to happen immediately, but what happens over the next 5 to 10 years? And so if China is allowed to propagate their digital technology for their digital currencies around the world, it could be very problematic from a national security perspective. And it's the thing that nobody's thinking about right now. I mean, there are a few people that are thinking about it, but not very many.
Well, and so what are the implications, again, just sort of briefly, of this social credit system being kind of like attached to this entire financial structure of the digital? Because presumably that's what they want to do. They want to integrate everything into this one currency, right?
I'll start at the high level and go down. For Xi Jinping and for the Chinese Communist Party, the operative framework the lens through which they view most things is control. You've got 1.5 billion people, things need to be under control. One of the ways to do that is to have a social credit score that's tied to the financial infrastructure, like how you spend your money. So that's what's going to happen in China, but it's my concern that China is going to export this technology around the world. It's going to hurt the cause of freedom. It's going to prop up authoritarian regimes, and it could potentially undermine the US dollar as the world's reserve currency.
And there's this other element here, right? Because we agree that any Chinese digital currency is going to have, I guess the entirety of transparency available to the state security apparatus instantly. And that's the thing. I keep thinking about that. Literally everything you will do financially, anything that your app can pick up through motion, through sound, through video, whatever, on the phone that you have, all of it will get fed into this, giant AI system, which they've been perfecting, and will, kind of change some of your ratings, and people will make decisions.
It's going to change the character of an entire population, right? So you don't do things, or you do things based on how it affects your credit score.
I'm remembering Minority Report, pre-crime basically. But I can imagine an AI like this just looking at statistics and saying, hey, look, I think this person might be predisposed to some sort of rebellious behavior. Maybe we should just take them off the street early before that happens.
Right. Now, there are some that might say that China has come out with a number of statements saying that privacy will be embedded in their digital currency. Okay, well, China also said that they wouldn't interfere in Hong Kong's domestic political issues. China also said that it would not build islands and would never militarize the South China Sea. And so you can take them at their word, or you can look at the Communist Party of China's track record. So they can claim that it's not going to be used for repression, and they can claim that it's going to be completely private, but I leave it to others to judge.